tone of the letter. A social linguist tells us that language directed at another person has three dimensions to it.
Right.
It is ideational, which covers the topic. It is interpersonal, that looks at the status of the people that are conversing. And then there is modal, that looks at how the words are exactly put together.
Right.
Yeah.
All of these elements are in every communication, but the effect of the communication is tied to the element that is stressed.
Yes.
Let me break this down and make it something more relatable.
Okay.
When I was growing up, particularly in my teenage years,
Okay.
there would be a time when I would say something crazy to my parents. It didn't happen all the time, but every now and again,
You lose your mind.
I would lose my mind and say something sideways to my parents.
Right.
And I would get that look. That look that says, I'm deciding if I'm going to take you out or not right now.
Right, you know.
Because of what you just said to me.
That's right.
See, my parents were reminding me that I didn't put enough interpersonal emphasis on my communication as their role as my parents.
Right.
And see, in Paul's case, this letter to the Philippians, there is heavy use of personal pronouns, which indicates an interpersonal communication. Paul cares deeply about what he is talking about. And he also cares deeply about who he is talking to.
Right. Say it.
At this moment in time for Paul, life has come to an abrupt stop with this unexpected imprisonment.
Yes, sir.
He is no longer running from this church into that church. His schedule that was packed full of tent making, traveling, preaching, coaching, and teaching has come to a stop.
All right.
It's interesting how at different times life forces us to stand still.
Slow down. Yep. Slow down.
It's interesting how during these times we become more reflective and introspective in our thinking. Thinking about the things that matter most in life.
That's right.
Which often are the things that we think the least about. Isn't it a shame how it takes forced stillness to evaluate our lives and think about the things that are truly important?
That's right.
It is out of a reflective moment that has caused Paul to be forced to stand still, and it is out of that reflective moment that birthed this book of Philippians.
I like that.
See, what was for Paul, what was most important to him was Christian unity and the survival of the church in the midst of intense persecution.
All right.
See, without this context, our passage would just be an arrogant, superficial proclamation of our own assured victory.
Right.
But now, as we narrow our focus and hone in on verse 13,
Yes, sir. Bring me on.
we will see that in verse 13, Paul is giving us his conclusion of the matter.
Come on.
Right.
Paul's life experiences have taught him a very profound lesson that can be summed up in the words, I can do all things
Yeah.
through him who strengthens
Oh,
me.
yes, you can.
First, let me look at the words, I can do all things. One of the aspects of Paul's life that I can relate to is the vast nature or the extreme nature of his experiences.
Yes.
Paul lived a life that was full of extremes.
Yes.
Paul was brought up learning at the feet of one of the best-known rabbis of that day by the name of Gamaliel. He was a Pharisee and a member of the Sanhedrin and would have taught Paul with strict attention to detail everything concerning the law and the traditions of the scribes and the Pharisees. This is why in chapter 3 of Philippians, Paul could refer to himself as a Hebrew of Hebrews, and as to the law, and to his zeal, he was a Pharisee who was a persecutor of the church. If we look in the book of Acts, as a young man, Paul held the coats of the men who stoned Stephen to death. And now fast forward a few years, we see this same Paul have a life-changing encounter on the road to Damascus where a light shone from heaven, knocked him off his horse, and God said, Paul, why are you persecuting me? And here we have the same Paul writing this heartfelt letter to a church that he founded. Paul's life experiences as it relates to religion were very extreme. In the book of 2 Corinthians, we see Paul's list of extreme hardships he experienced during his life. Paul had been imprisoned. He had been stoned, left for dead. He had been shipwrecked. And even at one point he was bitten by a viper. Paul lived in constant danger with few people he could trust. Paul was homeless. He had gone without food, but at the same time, Paul experienced the power of God working in his life in a very profound way.
Wow.
One story in Acts tells of Paul preaching one time, and a man sleeping fell asleep. Listening to the sermon, he fell asleep and fell out the window and died.
And died. That's right.
Paul stopped the sermon, went outside and raised the man back to life.
Thank you, God.
Yes.